Hey there again. Welcome to the Healthy Enterprise Podcast. Hope you're having a great day, and thank you for joining me. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. And if it's your first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy this episode. I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Psyche Young. She's a licensed professional counselor, trauma-informed therapist, and organizational consultant with over 20 years experience helping individuals, leaders, and teams navigate mental health, resilience, and change. As the founder of Vision Consulting and Wellness, Dr. Young bridges clinical insight with organizational strategy, supporting clients in areas ranging from trauma recovery and emotional wellness to leadership development. She's worked across sectors from private practice to public institutions and corporate leadership, always bringing a grounded, compassionate, and research-backed approach to healing and growth. Please welcome Dr. Psyche Young. All right. Hi, Dr. Young. Thank you for joining me today on this episode. I'm looking forward to hearing your story and as our listeners. So why don't we start with, doing a little introduction of yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Mr. Fletcher. My name is Dr. Psyche Young. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of PA, and my doctorate is in marriage and family therapy. So I provide a wide range of mental health services in and around the Philadelphia area and greater PA areas.
Excellent. And please call me Heath.
Okay.
I'm not that formal. And the name of your business is what again?
Yes, Vision Counseling and Wellness, LLC. And I have an office space there in Rittenhouse Square in Philadelphia. Yep. And I've been in business for about, I want to say a year and a half now in terms of private practice, but I've been in the field, of the mental health field, for about 11 years. So quite a long time.
And what drew you to that area of health?
So I believe it started when I was a child. My mom was a social worker and she would share certain stories with us. And I think that piqued my interest. But it wasn't until I did undergrad years later, I did 2 courses, Intro to Psych 1 and Intro to Psych 2. And I just fell in love with it. Human behavior. I was fascinated. I was like, yep, this is it. Took me a while.
And we talked about your name because your name is Psyche, and you've told me that you often get asked if that's your real name, it was. Yes.
It is. Yes, it is on my birth certificate. I promise. It's actually, from the Greek story of Psyche and Cupid and Eros and Venus, that Greek mythology story, but it really means the soul or the mind. And so I embrace it even more now based on what I do as a psychotherapist. So, yes.
And so your mom had a vision.
She must have.
Maybe.
She must have. It all came together nicely.
And so what aspects, so what do you specialize in? There's a lot of areas under mental health umbrella.
Yes.
So what areas do you particularly work
So
in?
it started off being some of everything, your basic depression, anxiety, mood disorders, things like that. But my marriage and family therapy, that is a specialized service that I provide for everyone dealing with family issues, systemic issues. I do have specialized training with military families, but I tend to see everyone once it's a family-based issue. Yes, that's one of the specialties. Couples and families, or if you're an individual, if you have a family-related issue, I still do that as well. So.
Mm-hmm. And prior to that, you did a lot of work in clinical care as well. So.
Yes, I did. I actually did. I starting off as, I think, like case manager type work and going into being like a care coordinator type work, and then branching off into really full-time therapy. Yeah. Community-based therapy and now private practice. So, yes.
So you have, as a practitioner, as a counselor, it's your own business as well. So
Yes,
not only are you being an expert in your field, but you also have to be somewhat an expert in running a business too, right?
Interesting word, expert.
there's a nice balancing act there somewhere. How do you accomplish that? How do you work work both those sides of the business.
And you said something interesting there, that word balance, because that's exactly how I look at it. I have to have a work life balance. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I treat clients, and I have this business to run on the business end. So you have to really understand your vision, your goals, and make sure that you're balanced, because one area, if you're not balanced and you're not feeling streamlined, one area can suffer, and we can't afford for any of that to suffer. So I really look at, well, what are my values here? What are my values? I really start with definitely family first, and then my business is secondary to that. So, but I don't want to have to shortchange any area, right? So the
Hmm.
balance is key. The balance is key. So definitely managing my time as much as I can, delegating where I can, looking at the resources I might need as an entrepreneur, being on top of all the trends and all the things that are going on so that I'm not lost by the wayside. So yeah,
Hmm.
the
Is
balance is
that
key.
is that some of the training or teaching you provide your clients?
Mhm. Actually,
Because
yes, that's a big area for some clients who are dealing with stress management, or they're just
yeah,
not feeling fulfilled, and they can't find purpose, and they're just kind of, not feeling peaceful. That work-life balance comes up a lot, actually. It really does. Yeah, it
and
really does.
and then you mentioned stress. Stress is a very good. It's a. Is it an indicator? Is it a byproduct? Is it a? Is
Mhm.
it a? Yeah. Is it an outcome of something else?
I look at it as a strong indicator that you're stressed, and depending on where you understand the root cause of that stress, we can look at, well, what's happening in your life? Do you have enough of a balance? Are you dissatisfied? Are you not fulfilled? Often it does come up that there is not enough of a work-life balance, and they're stretched in so many different areas. We want to help them to peel everything down and kind of rebuild it in a more balanced way. So that does come up a whole lot, I have to say.
Yeah, particularly in well, when I speak to people who are working in corporate America, the stress factor tends to be a lot. There's a lot of stress in a lot of jobs, and someone had mentioned if you don't have if there's issues at home, um, it'll come out in your work and vice versa, right?
Hmm. Now, sometimes that's true, but you'll find that people have learned to sometimes have that temporary masking that they do to function. And as a mental health therapist, I always look at, well, how is a person functioning? And we do look at a person's functioning across, settings, right? So you do look at functioning at home, functioning at work. Sometimes you see how they can overlap, but sometimes people are really great at functioning and performing well at work, but things are really crumbling inside, and really crumbling at home. So we often can, we find a way to kind of probe and get the person to really be transparent about that, because it's really tantamount to, it's paramount rather to the kind of treatment we can do. As authentic as you present to me as a therapist, as transparent as you are, I can then position myself in terms of support for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Is is it difficult for people to be transparent to actually? I mean, it is sort of a stigma that if we can't cope with all the stuff in our lives, that it's some sort of weakness, or that we failed, or that, and so it's difficult to come to terms with that and sometimes admit, oh my god, I
Mhm.
cannot handle everything I got going on in my life.
Yeah, yeah. And I like to dispel that myth, and I look at different things. So we're looking at core values here. Sometimes that idea of a strength, a weakness, a deficit is based on, well, what are your core values? Do you only value striving for success in terms of professional gains, or do you see success as a whole, that totality, that whole person? And I'm very holistic in my approach. So I often ask about the different areas of a person's life and encourage them to share it with me and be honest about that. And let's look at your value systems here. Do we need to have a mindset shift, a shift in how you're doing things, approaching things, and being honest about that area of vulnerability being a sign of strength? It's not a weakness at all, because the more vulnerable you can be, the more self-aware you're opening up yourself for more self-awareness, and then you can get to the place where you really want to be. You can understand what your deficits might be, and then you can have growth coming from that. So it's a whole process. It's a whole process. So when I find someone being very hesitant and not as forthcoming, there are certain skills and techniques. We do some probing, some open-ended questions, getting them to just talk, and there's so much that goes into how we assess, that sometimes I usually get what I need from them to be able to start the supportive avenue. Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought up core values, because core values is something that it comes in when you're having executive coaching, for example, or any kind of business development. They talk about what are your core values of your business, but we also as individuals have core values too. So tell me more about that. How do you help people define what their core values are?
Right. So I often ask people to think about what they believe their purpose is. So I am very kind of purpose driven, and I ask people that. And if they don't know, that tells me that they might be thinking of work as a survival thing. They have to do income. I have a family. I have to sustain myself. But are you fulfilled about what you're doing? Are you fulfilled with it? Is it a passion area for you? Or are you just, that living to work and working to live kind of situation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
values kind of come through when we have that conversation. And if they don't have core values they're operating with, I try to get them to look at it, because it might help them to make better decisions about where they're going and how they care for the self, right? So I have had a client who talked about really valuing, being taught to value the dollar and measure success by how much they were making. And if they were making any less, they felt like a failure. And we had to do some work on that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's probably a very common one too. Is that, why do we do anything? Why do you get up in the morning? Well, I got to get up. I got to go to work. I got to make money. I got to pay my bills. I got to support my family,
Yes.
which, is a very common purpose driven life as far as wanting to support your family. Cause there can be a confusion between, well, I'm only out to make money, but I'm actually, my purpose or my drive is to protect and support my family.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of it doesn't have a lot of room for passion if that's the drive, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to find the passion in there somewhere too.
Right. And then you have a kind of the opposite, where someone is so passionate about something, if they're not able to do it as a lifestyle practice or habit, they're totally just really distraught if they're not able to do it in some way, shape, or form. And of course, when it comes to being able to sustain a family and a home, and if you have a mortgage or have to pay rent, I know it does become about the practical side. Okay, here are some
Mm-hmm.
practical things I have to do to sustain myself, but really my passions lie here. So we look at, well, what can be a good marriage between those two, three things, and sometimes it's easier said than done, right? Because we're not just gonna survive and thrive on pipe dreams. We wanna incorporate the practical elements and look at, well, what are my resources? Do I have access to fulfilling this? Is it something that I can, find the time for and make it more of a lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
shift, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I mean, mental health, um, has become something that we talk about a lot more openly now, particularly since COVID. It kind of blew the door open on what goes on behind the doors. We just sort of revealed a lot, and it's easier to talk about. People feel a little bit more comfortable about revealing and feeling vulnerable. Um, so, how does mental health? What role does it play in the larger picture of healthcare in general?
Yes, so mental health is just one aspect of a person's life, right? So I love that we are branching into that integrative care model. So there's an integrative care model where they're incorporating the mental health piece with your physical health and the social health. So the social determinants of health right? Making sure that we understand that if a person doesn't have adequate resources, that can be a source of stress, anxiety, depression, which can then, affect them physically. So it's all interrelated. And so with that integrative care approach, you'll find more hospital settings and more clinic settings incorporating the mental health piece and the social health piece, the social determinants of health. And we're
Mm-hmm.
all going to be kind of like professionals under that one umbrella, providing that care, the integrative care for the person. You'll find that more often now than we had it 10 years ago. So that's an amazing journey that it's taken. It's kind of transformed into an integrative care model, which I'm really impressed by. And I used to work at a hospital setting where I was part of a multidisciplinary team and as the mental health professional, but there were doctors there, other specialists, there were care coordinators, social workers, and I just thought it was beautiful.
Well, yeah, because I mean that if all your different doctors aren't speaking to each other, I mean, is that a common question now? Like when someone has if they go see their primary care doctor or family doctor, whatever, and they have a health issue, are the questions being asked like, well, what happened at home when just before this event happened or
Yeah.
this condition came up? Like, are they starting to make the connection between those different aspects of our health at that stage?
Yes, they're doing so more now, and I think we still have a way to go, but you're finding that I know that there's certain screenings that now happen, and they will get into, well, what's happening at home? Did something happen? Was there an event? Was there a change? Is there a family life issue or lack of resources issue? Because if someone can't effectively pay bills and sustain themselves, clearly that can lead to some more mental, physical health issues in the long run. So yeah, they're starting to screen more for those things and ask them right up, when they triage and so on. Yeah, they are asking that more, but we still have a ways to go. I
Yeah.
find that, it depends on, the clinic, the hospital, I guess the administration, the way they run things. It depends. Yeah.
What other kind of cross modalities do you work with in other areas
Hmm.
of mental health?
Yeah.
What other areas do you work with?
Right. So, because I'm very much into that mind, body, spirit connection, it was really something I believe in. I'm working more and more with other medical professionals, maybe even fitness professionals, clergy members, ministry leaders, just because
Mm,
it's all what makes us human, right? That mind,
right.
body, spirit connection. I don't feel like we can effectively take one over the other. So
Right.
because of my philosophy there, I tend to go into all those spaces, and I think it's very relevant to how I present as a provider.
Well, I mean, and probably until you actually find out where those people where where they are with all those things. I mean,
Yes.
everyone's got different spiritual beliefs. Everyone's got
Yes.
different ways that they look after themselves. So until you actually find out, those have to be considered, I would imagine.
Yes, that's exactly right. And sometimes it just takes that conversation, finding out if it matters. I have clients who come in, who don't want to deal with the spiritual piece at all because they're not seeing it as relevant, and that's fine. I'm not going to project my philosophy onto my clients,
Sure,
but
sure.
certainly when clients come in and they learn about, that holistic approach, it's sort of like the aha moment, like, oh yes, I hadn't thought about how my management of my physical health is affecting my mental health, or how my lack of, like, I want to go to church but I haven't been because here's some of the reasons and how that's affecting me. And so we often kind of get to discuss it initially during like an intake, but if it's not something they want to incorporate into treatment goals or treatment, that's fine too. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess you got to respect that. If that maybe not,
Absolutely.
and maybe not then, maybe later after the trust gets built, and that must take some time too, is to actually build that rapport and build that trusting relationship. Is that or how long are these relationships with your clients? Like what's a typical
Mhm.
progression of progress? How long does that take?
Mhm. I might not see it as a typical period of time, but when you're looking at that initial rapport building,
Mm-hmm.
that first two sessions, really, you really kind of start to have a sense of what that will look like, right? You want to
Mm-hmm.
give it some time, but after that first 2 sessions, you'll know, is this client going to kind of keep coming for a little bit? Are they going to stick with you and work with you? Do they think you're a good match for them? And it really is the kind of match that they think they have. It's really a partnership. It's an alliance, if you will. So that rapport building, we want it to, you want to take time with it, but you don't want it to, you don't want to kind of sabotage their ability to maybe work with someone else who's more of a closer match. So you'll kind of get a sense of that the first two to three sessions. You'll kind of really know if this is enough of a match, an alliance that we can build here. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we go from there. But it's important. The relationship is super, super key and vital to the therapeutic process.
Yeah, I
It
can
really, that
imagine.
relationship, it really is. If you don't have that, enough of that, you're not, it's going to be very superficial. And we don't want superficial interactions at all.
No, because you need them to be vulnerable too, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
they won't be able to reveal that if they don't
Yeah.
feel like they're in a safe place or with a
Absolutely.
safe person. Yeah.
Yeah, and that emotional safety, that
Yeah.
needs to be established really in that intake session, right? Making them feel like this is a non-judgmental
Mm-hmm.
space for you to be expressive, for you to get to a place of vulnerability, and that you won't be judged for that, right? Whatever your belief systems are, you're not coming in to kind of match a prescribed way that I have to treat you. No, you're telling me what you need, and I will tailor that treatment based on
Mm-hmm.
what you need. Yeah, if I can. Now, if I feel like it's a specialty area that someone needs, certainly I would have to refer out, because I would be doing them as a service to try to work with them outside of my scope of specialty. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Um, what was it about that scope that drew you? What was it about, is there something about your life experiences, or, what was it that kind of attracted you to that area?
Hmm. Well, so I often think of that ripple effect. So an individual who is well, will hopefully build a healthy relationship, which will then lead to a healthy family, healthy community, healthy society, that ripple effect. So I was working mostly with individuals at first. And then I said, you know what? I really enjoy couples work. I really want to
Mm,
do that systemic work, a systemic in my thinking. So if you're thinking of the family as a unit, as a well-oiled machine, a well-oiled, well-run unit, when
mm-hmm.
one area is not working well, it affects the whole unit.
Right.
And so
Yeah, that
that's
makes
that's that's
sense.
part of that systemic thinking, and I really valued that. And I said, well, for me to make the most impact, yes, I'm working with some individuals on the individual level, but how do they see themselves systemically, right? In the community, in their family, like what do they feel they bring to that wider existence, if you will?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is this kind of care more accessible now than it used to be? Like, are people be able to use their insurance plans to access this kind of treatment as well now? It wasn't always that way, but is it
Mhm.
becoming more available?
It is. It really is. And I think it depends on just your, insurance specifiers and that particular insurance company. But I see very many couples and families now under insurance. The problem is that, I won't get into the pay disparities that we won't get into that.
No,
But I
we
think,
don't
I
need to
think
do that.
because as therapists we have to sustain ourselves and we're doing really hard work when it comes to couples and families, so sometimes a provider might choose not to see the family under the insurance, and they may choose to do it only in private pay, because
Right.
that's, the pay disparity is so vastly different.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, and the work that you're doing doesn't match up with what the insurance companies are, paying out. That's a whole other podcast, Heath.
Yes, that's another can of worms for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Are you able to leverage some of the technology that's available now that healthcare has, telemedicine or any kind
Yes.
of that kind of
Yes.
technology?
I actually do offer both. So I offer telehealth and in-person services. I find that that's what, in terms of that needs assessment that I do sometimes, that's what my population, they want. They want both. They want to have the convenience of both.
Right.
And so certainly with even AI, there's a huge discussion going on now with how innovative and creative and convenient AI platforms and powered programs and apps can be, but we also want to look at how nuanced that human element is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the ability to still show up as a really empathetic, compassionate person. AI can't do that.
Right.
So I love the advancements that technology has afforded me in my practice, but there's certain elements of it that I'm kind of being very selective on, even as
Yeah.
AI grows and we have different options. I'm very, very selective with how I use it because there's some ethical considerations that we have to factor into this using
Oh,
AI.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's
for
kind of
sure.
how it's going with AI. We try to follow the trends and we try to follow it all, but you have to be extremely selective based on your own principles and values and standards of care. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I mean, just the collection of data on its own is, and where that's going and the privacy and
Yes.
it's really important. I mean, there's a lot of areas where you don't really have to consider that because you're not really dealing with sensitive information or personal information. But in this case, you're dealing with very private information, right? And
Yes.
you have that responsibility with your clients to retain
Right,
that, right?
right. And you have to still be really careful about the privacy issue. So let's say you're using an AI platform or a powered system for your assessments. So part of your assessment, it's convenient. It can help you get all the data and all of that. But part of your assessment is still being present with that person and,
Mm-hmm.
the way their affect. You're looking at body language. You're looking at hygiene issues. There's so much involved with assessing a person.
Mm-hmm.
AI can't do that.
No.
It's just yeah, yeah.
Do you find that being able to do a video call with somebody that you get a little more insight than when they come to your office? I mean, because I mean, if a person's got to go out, they got to get
Mhm.
dressed, look good, and but do you feel like you get a little more insight when you're actually taking your window into their home, into their personal environment?
Sometimes you do. It's funny how that works because the presentation in person is just that. You have nothing else to go by. You have their presentation, the way they speak, the tone of their voice, the way they put themselves together, all of that. But when they're sitting in front of you, and sometimes some of my clients are not sitting. I've had clients who they're so busy trying to talk with me. No,
Right.
I've had this. I've had them and they cannot sit still while
Mm.
talking to me. So I'm seeing the chaos moving from they'll move me on their device from room to room. And I'm seeing getting these glimpses into the chaos that's really impeding their functioning. And yeah, you're
Interesting.
right. Yeah, so much is revealed sometimes when they're in their space because they're comfortable.
Yeah,
They're
you're
super
comfortable.
comfortable
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
take me into their spaces. They'll even show me sometimes what's going on. And I get to learn so much more than if they were well put together sitting in front of me.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah, because it's a presentation. I gotta go. I
yeah,
gotta go visit my
yeah.
counselor, and you put yourself together. And I don't know. Yeah, if I mean, for those who've never actually been for therapy, it's like you do kind of you do kind of want to present yourself a little better than maybe you, even though you want some help, you're not really there to kind of reveal it all
I
on
know.
day one or anything. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
But I encourage the transparency. I kind of drew the line at someone who was like just getting out of the shower and still in their towel, and I'm like, no, take me off camera. I'll wait. Get dressed.
please,
I'll wait.
please get
Please,
dressed.
please get dressed. I'll hold on for 5 minutes until you get
Yes.
yourself together because
Um,
they were
I
perfectly fine, kind of in their towel. I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
yeah, you got to set some boundaries, eh?
Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Yeah.
Uh, that's funny. Um, what you've done a variety of different projects in your career. Tell me about some of the other projects that you've done. I know they're related to your work, but you've worked on a few interesting creative
Mhm.
projects.
Mhm. Well, yeah. So I'm currently doing more of this podcasting. Presenting myself as a speaker. I am a speaker. So panelists. I'm a panelist. Panel discussions. I'm going to be launching my own podcast later in the fall.
Oh,
So
excellent.
definitely things like the speaking engagements where my reach, I can reach a wider audience in terms of the mental health field and what I'm doing by presenting myself as a speaker, not just the one-on-one sitting with a client and providing that immediate therapeutic support, but the spaces that I'm going into are more impactful on that community level. So being able to go and speak at a church, being able to be on a multidisciplinary team at the hospital setting and have them glean from what I know, my background. So entering certain spaces and that networking, I always value. You can never have too much networking, Heath. Okay,
No.
you can never have too much networking. I don't even think that's a thing. So I'm of the mindset I'm going to network, and it's usually very relevant in terms of what I do. Right,
Mm-hmm.
everyone can benefit from mental health. Everyone can benefit from that holistic model of care, that
Mm-hmm.
integrative model of care. So there we go. There
Is
we
that
go.
what you speak about? So when you're invited to speak at an event or something like that, what how do you choose a subject, or do you have a sort of a standard presentation that you do?
Yeah. No, no, it depends on what their needs are. So when I show up and if I'm invited, they'll tell me, well, here's my event, here's the focus that I have. And they'll invite me to come in. And I kind of just make sure that what I'm speaking about is relevant to what their event is focused on.
Right.
Right. Then you have more of a generic, can you come in and speak about your services, mental health, what you do, the importance of it, how to access care. That's more a little more general. But I might
Mm-hmm.
have, I did a podcast with someone who was focused on single fathers in the BIPOC community, but single fathers who were widowers, right? So, and that's an area, that's a population that we don't hear enough about,
No, that's right.
right? So their partners have passed away and they have these children to raise, and just that self efficacy or the lack thereof, and can I do this
Mm-hmm.
without my partner? So I found that very interesting, and that kind of drew me to that particular
Yeah,
podcast
that
too.
is
Yeah,
really interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
and there's probably more like that, more little pockets
yes.
of in the communities that you're not that
Yeah.
aren't as as common and as talked about as frequently. So
Right, right. So what I share is usually like a speaker sheet, and I have my, signature topics on there. And if that person feels like, hey, I'm having this event and here's what I would love for you to come in, then they'll kind of make that request that way. And
mm-hmm.
then I can tailor my discussion to what their needs are.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So that's a great, yeah, that's a great place to, and when you speak, you get to connect with people afterwards. It's a great place to
Yes.
network. So do you kind of, this is more about you and your business, but do you tend to stay more localized, or
Mhm.
I mean, because of the technology now, you can work with people from anywhere. So does it really matter, or do you kind of try and keep it more localized for yourself?
Well, it matters because of how I'm licensed, right? So I'm now licensed in all of PA. And
Oh,
so
okay, yeah,
usually I stick within my scope of practice with the licensure if I'm doing clinical counseling, clinical work. But if I'm just speaking generally and there's no clinical work, it could be
right.
anywhere. It could be global, it could be anywhere, because I'm not providing
Oh,
treatment.
okay, I
Yeah,
gotcha. Yeah,
yeah.
okay,
Providing treatment, I stick with PA, and I'm
right.
gonna eventually pursue licensure in New Jersey and I think Georgia, some states that I'm thinking of. But yeah, for the speaking, it could be anywhere because I'm not providing any clinical focus, right? Yeah.
Are you able to take advantage of telemedicine if you get licensed in multiple states? Can you do it through
So yes, it,
telemedicine?
it depends on how that state's, like every state has some different nuances
Slightly
of,
different,
yeah,
yeah.
different policies on that. But once you are, cleared to do that, you can get your telehealth credential to do only telehealth in that particular state.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
based on the
There's
fact
all.
that I'm licensed here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. That makes sense.
Yes.
Um, so what do you see? How about people in healthcare? Do you meet or talk to people in healthcare who are in need of some support in that sense? Because healthcare in itself is also a bit of a stressful environment to work in. Um, particularly now, it seems to be more stressful than it ever has been. So do you find are people in the healthcare industry, open to having conversations with you, or do you see people in the healthcare industry?
Absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I just recently got more of an influx of healthcare professionals seeking support, and
Oh, wow.
pleasantly surprised. Yeah, yeah, lots of nurse practitioners, medical providers, taking a moment to focus on their mental health, and I find it very refreshing because often their schedules are so grueling,
Yeah.
for them to create that space, even if it's 45 minutes. Like, let's talk. Let's have you pause and slow down for a minute to focus on that part of your health. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it must be a massive to take on not only your own individual life, but to take on a lot of the burdens that they help people with on a day-to-day basis. I mean, they're not superheroes. I mean, they're superheroes, but they can't deflect it, and it must impact them in some way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. I even have some first responders that are now taking that time to process and really be a lot more expressive and open about what their day-to-day service is like, and the toll
Hmm.
that it takes on them. So it's yeah, I encourage it. I encourage it. I encourage a person who is that busy but also in the helping profession to stop for a moment to seek their own care, because then that profession that you love, you'll sacrifice that because you're not caring for yourself. And it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, that self-care has to be big on your agenda and priority.
Yeah, that's an important thing for a lot of people to start considering is like you said, the holistic approach to your healthy life, and
Yes.
putting that first, because it also ties in with um, being more preventative.
Actually,
Because
yes, the preventive medicine. Yes. Because sometimes, because they're not very versed in all of it, thinking through that lens, right? So that holistic lens. Sometimes in just working with you, part of what I do is education too. I do a lot of psychoeducation. So psychoeducation really helps an individual increase their awareness of what their experience is, right? So they're feeling it and experiencing it, but they haven't put those two things together. So sometimes when we're providing treatment, if we're not including some level of psychoeducation, they don't have those moments of, oh wow, like this is what this is called.
yeah,
This is what this
yeah,
means, right? Yeah, that's important. So actually getting them to be aware of it is the first step toward preventing something from intensifying or getting worse,
hmm.
right? Yeah. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive and preventative. So yes.
Well, yeah, and then probably also having a bit of insight as to how we respond to these situations chemically too, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a mind thing, but it's also a body it's also a body thing, because
Yeah.
I mean we're like a pharmacy inside. We've got all the combinations of
Hmm.
things, and sometimes it's that chemical reaction that's also happening inside us. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially when the body is responding to something traumatic, or the relationship between your dopamine levels, your serotonin levels, and depression. Like those changes in hormones, right? It's important to know and understand. Well, how is my body working? How does my body even protect me? And how does all of that affect how I function in the greater society or even in my family? So I do a lot of psychoeducation when I can, if allowed.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably interesting to teach too, I'm sure.
Yes.
Any projects in the future coming up that you're excited about, that you're
Well, I
working
mentioned the
on, or
podcast. Yes, that's going
yep,
to be the next thing for me. And
yep.
certainly, I look at the needs in the community. If I feel like there's a support group that's needed,
Hmm.
I've done like a co occurring support group before. I've tried to organize, we didn't end up doing this group, but a group for caregivers of children with special needs was
Mm.
one on my list, right? So
Yeah, caregivers,
if I see
yes,
that there's
big
a
one.
need for that, certainly running a support group and getting someone to co-lead that with me. Those are things that I always am on the lookout for. But I'm working on, I'm going to see how my podcast does, Heath. And, maybe,
Excellent.
hey, maybe you can kind of return the favor here.
All right, for sure. I'd love to be a guest.
Mhm.
I can tell my caregiver story because I was a caregiver for a year and a half
Oh,
for my wife. She had a very serious situation last year, the last 2 years. So
okay.
I can share my caregiver experience for sure.
Absolutely. Sorry to
Yeah,
hear that.
absolutely.
Yes.
Um, she's doing great, but
Okay.
it's been an interesting journey for sure, and definitely needed some support during that process. So it's not something we can go through on our own.
Oh,
That's for
yes.
sure,
Good to
right?
know.
We
Good
all
to
we
know.
all need that help, right? So,
Absolutely.
um, as far as your business goes, are you you're happy to be sort of a solopreneur? Do you have visions of growing and having multiple providers in your business?
So certainly having not so much multiple kind of agencies or anything like that, but I will have supervisees that come on and kind of join my practice in the near future. I'm looking at 2 people for now, keeping it small. I have to pace myself. But
Yes.
yeah, they'll eventually come on board and work with me to provide the care for the clients. And of
Mm,
course, we have to think of things like office space and telehealth only and all the
yes.
different pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a complex scaling and growing a business for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe some cross modalities too. Maybe you bring in some other. Maybe it's a shared office environment you need where they have some other services in the same space, but you're not really
Absolutely.
necessarily actually carrying the weight on your own.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. That's
that's a
always
good
a
way.
possibility. Yes.
That's a good approach for sure. And what about what about advice for people who are maybe in school right now looking to go down this career path for themselves? Any advice about where to go, what to do, any other sort of guidance for someone who's sort of embarking on this career journey for themselves?
Hmm. Yeah. Really understand that the resources are there. It's just a matter of kind of finding the access to, having the access to those resources, but asking for the support that you might need, right? So let's say a student kind of coming out of that, they're looking for an internship site. There's certain groups online that are absolutely offering resources on internship sites and databases about providers who are, providing that internship space. So being able to access that and kind of use the online and the social media platforms to that advantage, because that's the quickest way that you're going to get these resources, unless you know someone who knows someone.
Right.
Use that social media, that online presence to your advantage, and get connected in the right rooms. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
But
good
support
advice.
is there. Just having that understanding that you're not going to go this alone. Someone else who, might be supervising you, they were once where you were, trying to find an internship site, trying to get their hours. So there is support available to you. You're not going to do this just alone,
Right.
right? Yeah. You
Right.
have support here.
And they can find you on LinkedIn.
They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as Yah Vision Counseling. So Yah, YAH, the word vision, counseling, right? That's my
Yep.
handle. So
Yep.
you'll find me under that handle on both Instagram, Facebook, and I am on LinkedIn occasionally, kind of sharing some a nice article that I find, or some sort of encouraging or
Excellent.
inspirational post. Yes,
Excellent.
absolutely. And you can email me on the yahvisioncw at gmail.com. So anyone who wants to inquire more about what I do and kind of seek their own services, that's yahvisioncw at gmail.com.
Amazing. Psyche, thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed meeting you, getting to know you, and learning about your passion for what you do. Um, you're clearly very passionate about your work. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us today, and I know the listeners will appreciate it as well.
It was my pleasure, Heath, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, that was super great. Nice to talk to Dr. Young and hear her perspective on the critical importance of an integrative care model that weaves together mental, physical, and social health. And accessibility to through telehealth is so important, and it really gives people the access they need when they need it. and is transforming the mental health landscape. So she spoke very candidly about the need for healthcare professionals to prioritize their own mental well-being and the impact of psychoeducation in preventing mental health challenges before they escalate. So thank you for joining me on this thoughtful conversation, and I hope it offered some meaningful insight. And remember, prioritize your mental health. You are worth it. It's just as important as your physical health, and support is always within reach if you need it. So please subscribe, share this episode with someone who you think might benefit, and until next time, thank you for listening to the Healthy Enterprise Podcast. Take care.